Now I'm very excited to welcome back a great professional handicapper and longtime friend of our show, and Mr. Doug Upstone from Doc Sports. You follow him on Twitter at Doug Upstone. Doug, we are here talking NFL already. We got Memorial Weekend coming on up. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I know it's crazy, right? I mean, it's not that the NFL season just ended, but it just seems because it's May, and even though like some people, not like us where we live, but other people, their summer hasn't even started yet, and we're talking NFL football. So that's crazy. But hey, you know what? That's what the world wants. That's what bettors want. So hey, we're here to deliver the goods.
Well, especially now that these NBA's got some sweeps going on, possibly too. I've never seen that happen before. So,
No, yeah, if that happens tonight, first time ever.
yeah, so it's kind of like people are probably shifting their thoughts now towards the NFL. And thank God books nowadays have that stuff early now.
Yep.
And there's good and bad. You got to be ready to bet it, but that's why we talk NFL. And NFL really never stops. It stops for me, I guess, after the Super Bowl through March Madness, and it kind of picks up with the draft for myself. But I think that's kind of like how it is for a lot of people these days.
Yeah, I'm not a big draft guy, but in terms of, I know you do a lot of the betting with it and stuff like that, and I just for whatever reason, it's just never caught my interest. I'm more what I would call reflective. Okay, so I like to not see what necessarily what happens, but I actually keep and save the drafts and look back at them 2-3 years later, okay, and see who's still on certain teams and kind of who's done what, and just make mental notes along those lines. But yeah, the in the moment stuff. But hey, now I know we both have a affinity of sorts for the Green Bay Packers, good and bad, by the way. But the Lambeau Field going to have the draft in 2025. I saw yesterday.
Let's hope it's not snowing. It could
Yeah,
snow through May there.
You're right. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it's going to be a beautiful day. You just don't
It
know.
wouldn't bother anybody there, though.
See, I love Wisconsin. I'm from there most of my life.
Yep.
Chicago a little bit when I was younger than that. But it's for me now that I live down in the heat. It's pretty much late June or July through September is what I love Wisconsin about. And now every once in a while, a snowmobile trip in the winter's cool, or ice fishing, or go visit my family up there, and that's good. But right now, you never know what you're going to get, and it'd be interesting if it was a snowy day. It'd probably add some fun to it from a watching perspective, though, if it was snowing, maybe. But the people there might not enjoy it so much. Flying in for it anyway.
Yeah, as long as the brandy's flowing, nobody seems to care there. So that's kind of how that works.
Old fashions, baby. Get your old fashions when you get up to Wisconsin. That's the important thing. Well, Memorial Weekend coming on up. Do you have any big plans?
Nothing in particular. As it turns out, it is my wife's birthday, and so a lot of festivities around that. So actually have something for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday from that standpoint. And because I still continue to write, also there's work involved, in that. So yeah, it's not. The holidays, other than the 4th of July, for a long time have just revolved a lot of times around work. So not, do stuff, but not a lot of stuff. How about yourself?
Oh, so the plan is to go up and visit our friends up in Flagstaff. They have a place at Forest Highlands, and it's a fun place. It's like kind of like a gated-ish community, but it's a golf community, really. It's on a very large golf course, but you can still buy homes there. Massive HOA fees, but I guess it counts for your golf if you live there, which is kind of cool. But it's just like a place where it's got its own restaurants. It's got a little tiny convenience store that nobody can use unless you live there. And so it's kind of like a little bit of a tight vacation type place, and it's fun. It's fun. So we plan on doing that, and it's very woodsy up there, as you know, up in the mountains. So that's going to be some fun. Watch a little sports, but we'll definitely.
Well, there's not going to be much sports on,
and that's a good thing. I'm glad
NBA, that I don't even know when the NHL finals start. I haven't looked that far ahead, but there might be if tonight. If Dallas can win, that's about the only one that looks like it might even make the weekend. Dallas and Vegas.
Right,
but
right.
everything else looks pretty much locked down. So it's baseball or if you like the USFL, are you a USFL guy at all or no?
No, no, no. I mean, I
Okay,
want them to be successful, but I need my breaks from football, and
understood.
I little bit of baseball, but that's why I love Memorial Weekend. It's more I can do stuff with the kids and just have more fun and not just be, have a game on in the background. And I don't get too distracted by it sometimes, but we are sports bettors. We do watch what's happening. So it's important. The good thing for me is I get up at 4 or 5 in the morning. They get up at 8 or 9. So I'm doing a lot of sports betting stuff early. And
Wow.
that's just the way I live my life, man. I don't sleep a lot. So been like that. It just doesn't affect me since I've been like that for a long time. And I guess that's a good thing when it comes to sports betting, but probably maybe not the way you want to be living. But
Ultimately, probably not. I would agree with you on that one.
let's talk a little baseball real quick. And both you and I are Cubs fans,
Yes.
as some of our listeners probably remember. But what's funny about them is their record's not good. It shows a losing team that's going to miss the playoffs, the postseason. But are they that bad? And what kind of issues are they really having, do you think?
Well, I'll start it off, and obviously, I want you to chime in as well. Yes, I think their record is indicative of who they are. I was not, there were some people talking about they could be a playoff team this year, and maybe something will change, but there's nothing here that I see that'll change. And I think it goes back to, there's any number of different ways to look at it. I think it starts with the Ricketts, who own the team. Okay. When they bought the team, they definitely had plans of winning, but the Ricketts are known for making their money. And so they spent money, they did everything, and they got lucky. Okay. They brought the right people in, by the way, at the beginning of the deal, Theo Epstein in particular, but they got lucky and they won the World Series. Okay. And then after that, they turned off the faucet on the water, on the money. And so they invested all this time and material in what's going on outside the ballpark, some of it inside the ballpark. And they quit spending money. They quit player development. So after having a bad year last year, attendance was down some. So this year they went out and they got a bunch of what I call brand name players. Now, I'm not saying they're good players, okay, but they're brand name players that at least people are familiar with. But in terms of other than Dansby Swanson, who I think was a surprise that he actually ended up there, most of the other guys are average players at best. They had their best success at other locations. They're unlikely to duplicate that or replicate it. So this is a team that at best is a 500 team, and it's no surprise to me. I don't know if it is to you or not.
Okay. So I disagree with some of that. Now, the Ricketts did purposely not spend money, but they developed so much infrastructure in Wrigleyville that I kind of understand it. Now, if this continues, Doug, then I will have a problem with it. But I'm still, I guess I know 2016 is probably miles away right now, but I still kind of feel the effects of it. I'm happy that it happened.
Absolutely.
And I just think that now that the Ricketts need to press pause, make some money back, and then build the infrastructure. Now, hopefully, these businesses they built around there makes them money too. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? But I expect them to empty the pockets more because I'm looking at this as only the second year of the rebuild where they started signing some people. Now the bullpen has overachieved, and you can see them blow some big games. Unfortunately, some of the ones that I've been on late, they have a lot of one-run losses and a lot of large wins, and that's why they're plus 21, Doug, in their run differential.
Yes.
They're plus 21, 20 in 2016, plus 21. But, if you want to, talk about underachieving, you got the Toronto. Toronto was supposed to be much better, sitting at 25 and 23. You have the Yankees. Well, the Yankees are actually doing pretty good. The White Sox were supposed to be, decent again. They're 19 and 30, just a lot of head scratchers right there, especially with the Cardinals was sitting in their own division. Now, if it was me, I would pick the Cardinals to win it right now, sitting at 21 and 28, because I thought Pittsburgh overachieved a little bit too. But the Cubs, if they just somehow straighten up, I guess their run scoring, try to make it a little, don't be so hot and cold. Bellinger started out bad, then he was good for a long time, then he's bad. It's like, be a little bit more consistent, maybe win your games by 1 or 2 or 3 runs instead of win 2 by 10 and then lose 4 by 1. yeah, maybe that evens out. So I think they're kind of a buy-on team from a sports betting perspective, just due to some of the power in those bats that they picked up. But I think they're going to be borderline at the end, Doug. I did bet the over 76.5 wins. And so I'm kind of sitting there. It's looking under right now, but I'm hoping it changes.
Yeah, I think the 76, was a good number in terms of, or a realistic number. I agree with you on that, and there were some possibilities there, but a lot of the things, at least that I read early before the season, where talking about a 500 team, talking about a team that maybe could slip into the playoffs, and that would to slip in the playoffs, you're probably looking at 88 wins in order to do that, and I didn't see that at all. Looking at a variety of things, and one of the things that's always the case when you see a team that has a record below 500, but yet they're a plus and run differential. It always, well, I shouldn't say always, 90% of the time, it's the bullpen. Okay, is what the problem is. And the Cubs, I think their bullpen, now their numbers, they've risen quite a bit. But the one thing that it shows, I believe the record of the bullpen, I want to say, is 5-14. Don't hold me to that. It's right around there. And that's 14 losses that of their total is from the bullpen. So that's a big problem.
And I know that Ross has left a few guys in too long. I know you have to leave 3 batters. We know that because sometimes people, forget about that. But the truth is, there's been some times where it's like, you better pull this guy. Just put someone on 1 and 2, and then he just leaves them in, and boom, that's game. And I've seen a few of that, and some very strange moves in the outfield now. You can't can Ross right now, but maybe you look at some options after the All-Star break and see where you're at. Maybe come the end of July or something, you see really if they're contending or not. Then you can kind of try to find out using analytics on what the manager should have done if he's really accountable for some of those losses, Doug.
Oh yeah, how these guys are graded now. I'm not sure that analytics is the entire answer. For the stuff I've never. I understand. For me, anyways, it has its place. I just think in the terms of the science of it, and I'll give you a great example how the Texas Rangers are playing right now. Bruce Bochy is an old school guy, okay, and one of the things that I like about how they're playing that impresses me is that they're not a home run driven team. Okay, they play what I would call old school baseball, and what I'm talking about is the first to third. So you get the runners on the corners, and then instead of just trying to hit the home run, get the 3-run homer, they just keep trying to hit the ball, and they got a lineup that can do that. And it's no surprise to me that now watching, especially how they play, that they're first or second in runs scored in baseball this year. And the other key thing is that style of play is demoralizing to the opponent, because it's just one guy after another on base, and it's just when you see that, I can go back to there's teams from yesteryear, and yesteryear being 20 years ago, but that played that style of baseball, and and they were very successful at it, and it's a more interesting game to watch from that standpoint, in my opinion, than just watching home runs or waiting for guys just to strike out. But it's fun. I like how they play. I'm really impressed. What about you? Do you like what they're doing, or what do you think?
I love what they're doing, and I almost got them the preseason. It seemed like a lot of people were on them in the preseason, so the number kind of got away from me. But I did consider them. They do have if you look at team rankings, they have the easiest schedule so far, so maybe that plays a little bit of a difference. But it is baseball, and if things go up and down, so we'll see if they hold on to it. But I'm very impressed by them. Would you call them your most surprising team? Which is my kind of next question, really.
Yeah, transition. No, I wouldn't, because I thought. I'm somewhat surprised they're in first place, but I thought they would be good. The two surprising teams to me, one good, one bad. Arizona. I thought the Diamondbacks would be better, but they're playing much better than I anticipated. They're young guys who come through. They're talk about another team that's fun to watch. They definitely are. And they attack on offense, looking to steal bases all the time, take the extra base. Still not 100% sold on the pitching right now, but you know what? It's a long season. So not, we're talking about right now, like them. To me, the most disappointing team though, and I'll admit it because I bet them, is the Seattle Mariners. I knew their lineup wasn't going to be great, but to me, it's underperformed. Their season win total was, I think, 89 or 89 and a half. And, right. I mean, they're basically, they're one game below 500 as we're doing the show. So, I mean, they'd have to get it, one of those, 15 or 18 and 3 runs to, really get something going. Now they're in a division where that's a possibility, especially playing Oakland, but still, I don't know. Not as high on them as I was. And, like everybody, they've lost some pitching then too, due to injuries. So those are my 2 teams, Kev. What about you?
You can go a lot of ways with this because you can make an argument for 8 to 10 teams almost here to go far in the postseason. I would almost think it should come down to pure power and talent, but you got the Mets, and that's going to be one of my more disappointing ones. Now they did go on a nice little run recently, but they're 25 and 23. They should be sitting better. They always seem to have bad injury luck, and it's already starting to kind of creep into them. But the Mets were supposed to be a lot better than they are. So, being 25 and 23, that's a little bit disappointing for me. I think that you can say Oakland too is disappointing, but we knew they would be bad. We just didn't know they'd be this bad.
When you're losing by 3.6 runs per game, as we sit here today, I don't know. Boy, I've heard the stories of the old Mets team from 1962 when the Casey Stengel. Here's a quick story. Casey Stengel was talking to this team after watching the spring training, and for those that don't know, Casey Stengel was a very successful manager. I was older when he was with them back in those days, and at the end of spring training, he goes, "You know what, guys, we're going to win. It just ain't going to be with any of you guys."
It's really fun. That's a way to kick them out right there, though. We don't care about your feelings back then, buddy. That is hilarious. I mean, 10 wins and 39 losses is quite pathetic here. And I mean, do they get to 50 now is the question. And I don't even know. I don't even think they can do that. But I mean, this is baseball, and maybe some guys from the farm come up and help out a little bit. And that's always, it seems that baseball seems to even itself out somehow. But Baltimore at 31 and 16 is definitely much more. They're doing better than I thought. And I took their season win total over, I think 78 or 80 wins or something. But man, they're really on pace to beat that. And I'm kind of hoping they do. But, they did have somewhat of an easy schedule to start, but still, I mean, you can't really go wrong with what they've been doing. And, they almost swept, or they did sweep Toronto. They swept Toronto this May, just a few days ago. I was on them a couple times. They took 2 against Tampa Bay, and you know how hot Tampa Bay started. And Tampa Bay, they had a really easy start to their schedule, and so they were the most surprising team. But I'm going to give it to Baltimore. And I'll give you a little bit with the Boston Red Sox too, because I expected them to be a worse team and giving up more runs. The thing is that they're scoring a lot of runs. It's not as bad as Oakland where the over hits because of the other team, but the over is hitting because they're getting a lot of runs, and they are definitely giving up their share of runs too. So they're a big overs team right now. The market has adjusted, of course, but right now they're just scoring a ton of runs.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to go Friday to see them, as a matter of fact.
Oh, sweet.
Because they're, it's nice now with the balanced schedule, which I like, is that, every other year, you're going to get to see some teams you don't normally get to see, if you live in a city that is, a major league team or live near one. So I think it's a real benefit. So yeah. And with how they're playing, I couldn't even tell you the last time I saw the Red Sox. I probably was when I was living in Milwaukee. It's a long time ago. Yeah. So yeah. So just, it's fun to be able to do that. And as I'm a big baseball guy, just from not only from a betting standpoint, but also from a fan standpoint, love pitching and stuff like that. So looking forward to that. Won't see probably a lot of good pitching with Boston in town, but it'll be interesting to go and at least see them.
Yeah, it's a good one to bring a kid too, because a lot of runs could happen with this game with these teams. So we'll see. As long as it's not against Gallon or something, then that'd be a little more difficult. But we'll see what happens. Let's pivot on to the NFL then, Doug. Right. So I asked you this last year, and I had you on a little bit later last year, but I'm glad you popped on early here because it's probably a little premature in some cases, but it's fun to talk about. I'm curious about an NFL team that didn't make the playoffs last year and you think could this year?
Well, this is a pretty obvious choice, but it makes the most sense to me. The New York Jets.
Yeah.
The Rodgers is going to be a positive. Okay. Now, how much so? I mean, I don't think there's much doubt he's in decline. Now, I'm not saying significant decline. Okay. I don't think we're talking about like Drew Brees' last year, nothing like that. But yeah, there's definitely, but he also has a much stronger arm. I think that with Brees Hall back, that'll help their running game. And I think that they've also made some adjustments at tackle. So I think overall, I think the defense will be excellent because of the head coach. That's his background from that standpoint. So I could see them, getting to 10 wins. Okay. Maybe 11, but I would say 10 for sure. And that should be good enough to get into the playoffs. So that'd be one team that I would look at to make the playoffs.
And that is definitely the most obvious one too, but I agree with it. That's my number one team I would go with if I had to pick one. But my next one, I'm going to be a little bit more off the grid. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. And what I like about Atlanta is I don't love how they drafted a running back when they didn't need one, but he's still a really good prospect, And
Yes.
a couple consistency things they have. Desmond Ridder did start the last 4 or 5 games of the year, and if you look in the division, Tampa Bay is going to have a new quarterback there. Carolina is going to have a new quarterback there, and the Saints are going to have a new quarterback there. Well, that's played before, but still new to the system, new to the players, and everything else. And you have a little consistency with Atlanta, not to mention that cake schedule that Atlanta has because they get the NFC North and they get the AFC South, probably the 2 easiest divisions in football here. And that's their divisions they're playing, not to mention each other a bunch of times. So, I think they have a real shot to make the playoffs here. And surprise, surprise, I bet them to make the playoffs at plus 180. And I don't know if that's still there because I tweeted about this, teasing some people earlier, but I just it was 125 at DraftKings, 115 or 116 at FanDuel. But if you had a bet MGM account, that thing was sitting at plus 180. So I'm going to see if that's still available while you chime in.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Like I said, I don't go especially for these types of potential bets and stuff like that. I just don't look at it that closely this time of year. Like we were talking about earlier, taking some time off, and from the standpoint of the NFL, like to keep abreast of what's going on, but a lot of times, at least for me, there's just so many changes that occur between now and once you get to the middle of August. And can you lose value on certain bets? Absolutely, you can. But I'd rather, from just a personal standpoint, I'd rather make a bet that I'm comfortable with than making one that I'm not comfortable with. So, it's just a matter of semantics, and that's just how I tend to view it, from that standpoint. But yeah,
No
but
problem
guys
with
like
that.
you that are out there pumping it right now, hey, you know what? Hats off to you. You have a skill set and a desire that I don't have, for that. So I commend everybody that can do that.
And I try not to get too tied up unless it's some decent plus money and it's a good argument. But I'm usually on the right side of some of these season win totals as well. So I purposely wait instead of collect the 1% interest we can get from our bank accounts. I'll risk that, Doug, and let the sports books hold on to it for a little bit. Certainly glad it's not in crypto right now either.
There you go.
Give me an NFL team that made the playoffs last year that might not this year.
Well, I'll give you 2 of them, as a matter of fact. One that I would look at is Seattle. Geno Smith was fantastic. Does that mean he's going to be that good again this year? I don't know. They kind of tailed off, got off to a good start. They tailed off. Defense still has some issues. The defense will get solved over the next couple of drafts, I would imagine. But I think that's the key word, over the next couple of drafts, and not necessarily right away. So though I expect some improvement, I'm not sure Geno, I'm not saying he's going to be the player that he was with the Jets, but I'm not sure he's going to be the player he was last year. So that's one team that I would look that could definitely fall off the playoffs. The other one is the New York Giants. Giants were 9-7 and had a scoring differential of -6. And so that's a concern to me. Jones played better than anybody expected at quarterback last year. I don't know if there's a greater upside. He'll have better receivers, that's for sure, this year. I'm just, they're just, the whole coach thing, everything kind of came together. I'm just not sure if it will. Now, I will be the first to admit I will be looking at them at least coming into the season, because I think of last year that they were 11-4 as underdogs. And I, like many people watching this video, and I'm sure yourself as well, I took the Giants frequently during the season last year, and that was the way to go with them as an underdog.
Absolutely. As an underdog, they were fantastic, and they would always creep up and win at the end. But now their schedule didn't do them a ton of favors. I believe they play, I thought it was like 3 or 4 teams coming off their bye weeks. And Warren Sharp, as you can see on my screen,
I think it's even, I thought, were they the one that was 5 or somebody?
Maybe it was 5, but I'm seeing 2 -7s here. And of course, everyone gets, usually gets a bye week, unless Atlanta here, for some reason, they're playing a team that that went on a bye as well. Imagine 2 bye weeks coming to meet each other. That would be unfair. But and it looks like that's what it is here. But no, it's showing like a big deficit of -9 rest days, and San Francisco's the worst at -20. So the scheduling this year, for some reason, is much different when it comes to rest. I thought this was just a really interesting graph that Warren Sharp put out there. The Jets, the Bears, and the Washington football team were the most benefit from rest days plus rest days. So they're not playing anybody off a bye this whole season. There's a bunch of teams that aren't playing anybody off a bye. So yeah, I found that very interesting.
That is for sure,
and fun to look at. So if you have a chance, you can check out good old Warren Sharp there. So let's move on to some divisional thoughts then. Well, actually, before that, my team, and you did take Seattle, but I'm going to throw out the Minnesota Vikings, because the Vikings were Pythagorean over 4 games over their achievement level. They gave up more points than they scored last year. Yep. They won 13 games. That was absolutely massive. So I'll go with the Vikings on that. But let's move on to picking, or not just picking. We're going to just give you a couple quick thoughts on each division. If you have a bet, God bless you. I'd love to hear it. If not, no big deal. We'll start with our NFC North, Doug. And I did do a preview on that division last week, but let's see if you have anything for the North.
Yeah, honestly, I don't. From that standpoint, especially best bets, I think it's a very difficult division. You just mentioned about Minnesota. Okay, they're going to come backwards. Okay, there's no way in the world they're going to get seemingly anywhere close to 13 wins. That defense just isn't good enough. Packers pretty much speak for themselves. They're in flux. It isn't just the offense. It's just where does the improvement come against the run? Okay. And that's the big thing there. And they're also weak at safety. I don't see any serious upgrades there. I think Jordan Love's going to be better than people think from that standpoint. So that's one thing. Detroit. Well, when I think of Detroit, I think of the television show, Everybody Loves Raymond. Okay. Because right now, everybody loves the Detroit Lions, okay, to win the division and stuff. And I can understand the point of that, from that standpoint, because it's more, if you look at the whole group, it's not a great group of, as you mentioned earlier. And then the Chicago Bears improving, yes. There yet, no. So if I had to say anything, and on last year on the show, I was down on the Packers, as I'm sure you don't remember that, but I was. And when you do this, you got to be realistic, about teams. Unless Detroit just goes off, okay, and really plays better than anyone, I think the Packers actually could sneak in and win the division at like 9-8 if they get the right tiebreakers. But would I bet that? Okay. Am I recommending that? No, I'm not. I think Detroit's the team to beat, but I'm not sold that they're a 13-4 okay team, or even 12-5, to be perfectly honest. Now, when you did your show previously, I'm curious to hear what you had to say.
I think you kind of said it right off the beginning. What I agree with is the market's kind of correct on a lot of it. It's not like they have the Vikings at 13, 12, 11. They have the Vikings at 8.5 wins, the market, and then DraftKings, that's where you can see it. It's like 8.5, little juice to the over, or sorry, juice to the over, my plus 110. Actually, no, it's juice to the under plus 110. It's plus 110 minus 130 to the over. That's what I'm saying. I'm totally saying it wrong. But here's the thing. how can you bet the Vikings after last year? And they didn't really do a lot to fix their defense from the draft, in my opinion. I thought they kind of went right to a wide receiver. It's like you got rid of Van Thielen because you really didn't use him much last year. And what's the next guy going to do for you? You know, I mean, you got a big name in Addison, but so what? I mean, that's not where you needed help. You need help against the run, just like a lot of these NFC North teams, you know. So I understand why Detroit's number one, and I guess gun to the head put me there. But you're right, everybody's on that. I don't want to be on that, and I don't trust the Bears yet. Fields hasn't proved he can throw the ball. You know, Eberflus hasn't proven that he's a real head coach yet. You know, there's a lot of hope there because they're getting compared to what the Eagles were with Hurts and stuff. But no, I need to see some action before I can really believe in the Bears. And I think their season win total at 7.5 is a little bit too high right now. I'm not saying I did cash in on their under 6.5 last year, but they at least has a fourth place schedule. The Packers, a lot of doubts for them being the fourth, but I wouldn't put them at the fourth. I'd at least have them tied for the Bears coming into the season because even with Jordan Love, you don't know if he's worse than Fields. We don't know a lot about Jordan Love, and seeing the Packers game a little extension, that might show some belief there. Maybe the kid has gelled. Maybe all of a sudden he comes up firing. You got a good coach in LaFleur there. So it's a big game of Yahtzee, and if I had to take a future, I'd take the Packers at plus 500 if I had to, but I'm not. So I'm passing on it too, Doug.
All right. What do you got next for me?
South. Let's go NFC South. And that's where I can quick start because I already alluded to what I'm doing here. I mean, New York, the Saints are plus 115. And me and many other bettors had the Saints win in the division at massive numbers, plus 400. That one game against Tampa where they choked it all away was really what it said it done. And then they lost the final game against Carolina. Now, I'm going to say that Carolina made a huge mistake by winning that last game because it changes three of their opponents coming in to this year. It's massive. And now they have to play a second place schedule instead of a fourth place schedule, you know, in this situation. So it's if you look at who the Saints get to play, they have by far the easiest schedule because I already alluded to the fact that they get to play the NFC North and the AFC South. But looking at the Saints, they're at large games at New England. They have at the New York Giants and versus the LA Rams. Then you have the Falcons versus Washington at the Jets, which is tough, but at Arizona is a win. But then you're sitting here with the Carolina Panthers because they won that last game. They're playing at Seattle, at Miami, and against Dallas. You know, so I would argue at Seattle, at Miami versus Dallas is certainly harder than, say, the Falcons at Arizona versus Washington at home. At the Jets is probably a loss. Or the Saints at New England, which is, you know, we'll see what happens with them. At the New York Giants, which you said could be a fade team, and against the Rams, who could be at some point tanking. So I think they screwed up, Doug.
Yeah, you know, the only thing I'll say, and I guess I find this an admirable quality, is that, you know, it used to be nobody would, well, essentially nobody used to quit in sports, or at least not that we knew of. And so I give it to them for at least playing, because that's actually their job, is to go out and win games. Now, obviously, we know that there's plenty of that goes on the other way now in today's sports world, and that's just the change that's occurred. So, you know, I don't know. I like what they did. Does it benefit them this year? Probably not. Okay, but I think that just as a whole, there was no expectations coming into this year. They knew they were rebuilding. So, you know what? Hey, you know what? In 3 years, if Carolina wins the division, does anybody going to care about what they did that 1 year? I'm going to say no. Okay, from that standpoint. So, but going about the division just in general, I'm going to say that I agree with you. There's not a lot to talk about here. I think
and that's why I bring it up from a sports betting perspective.
Right.
From a sports betting perspective, it really hurt their chances, I think, to get the 8 to 9 wins, and it helped the Falcons' chances to get the 8-9 wins just based on those 3 games. People with that added NFL game, it became an at-large game, and this year the NFC plays at the AFC. So the NFC has 8 home games and 9 away games. If you're the Giants, one of your home games is actually in London. So you kind of got screwed on that. So you really have 7 home games if you're the Giants. So there's just so many situations where this could kill. Now, from a fan perspective, completely different perspective. Yeah, win the last game, sure. I don't expect you to win the Super Bowl this year, but from a sports betting perspective and looking at their season win total, they made a mistake when it comes to how we approach it. So
yeah, right.
That's kind of my little point.
Okay, I see where we're going with that. But yeah, I mean, to me, this division, New Orleans by default, they got Derek Carr, they got the best quarterback in the division. The defense still gives up too many points against good teams. Yeah. Carolina, full rebuild, basically the same as true Tampa Bay. Atlanta's defense, definitely a concern. Offense has definite potential. But yeah, it's New Orleans or nothing for me, as far as winning this division.
How do you figure out Tampa? They have all these old money contracts. They had made no attempt to get a real quarterback. I mean, Baker Mayfield has had his chances. But do they really think that this is a resurrection system with him? And then you got Kyle Trask, which obviously is scrap heap material if you're picking up Baker Mayfield. I mean, the way that the Packers are treating Jordan Love and the way that they're treating Kyle Trask is completely different right here. And so it's just like, why are you holding on to all this old money? I almost feel like there's going to be a lot of trades happening with them if they start losing. I think they're going to try to unload Goddard, maybe, or their other big receiver there, right?
Yeah,
I think there's a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think just a lot of teams have a plan, and they don't necessarily make it accessible to everybody else. I mean, I think they got their Super Bowl. I think they're satisfied. Now they got to look to rebuild because they know that this deal is over for them, and so they like I said, they got these contracts. If they can move them at some point, I think they do.
Absolutely. Let's go to the NFC East. Why don't you get started with this one? Obviously, the Super Bowl contender Eagles were there. You had a pretty good team in Dallas. You had a very fortunate team in the Giants and an interesting team in Washington.
Let's see here. So, I mean, Philadelphia was fantastic last year. And the season win total I see is at 10.5 or less. That's what I saw the other day. And so, I don't know if they're going to be 13-4 because they lost 4 defensive starters, as I recall, on that. So I think they're going to take a step backwards, certainly defensively. Offensively, though, I don't think it'll be a lot different. I'm still going to pick them to win the division. I think the Cowboys will be close, but like everybody, at least I think most people, with the Cowboys, unless you see it, then So if you see something during the season to where they can surpass Philadelphia, but there's not enough there that changes my mind. Giants, like I said, I think the Giants are basically a 500-ish type team. Washington, we'll just have to see where that all goes. So I'm going to say, and only this will be interesting. There has not been a repeat champion in this division in 18 years. So if Philadelphia accomplishes that, that's of note, but I'm going to go that direction, Kiev, on this one.
Philly, yeah, I mean, they did draft the whole state of Georgia, I'm pretty sure, when they came in.
Which is not a bad idea.
It's probably not a bad idea, don't get me wrong, but they're certainly coming with a lot of hype. One thing I did notice about the Eagles is they did have the second easiest schedule last year, and I think the Niners actually had the first easiest schedule just because of what happened within their division, but they had a very fortunate schedule, and I give them that they're still a powerful team, but they probably overachieved by a little bit. One thing about Dallas is the team that I would hate on a little bit more. I mean, their fumble differential, and now interceptions are more predictable, but fumbles aren't. They're like plus 11 or plus 12 in fumbles. I love to look at that in the beginning of the season because it kind of tells you, how many you're gaining and how many you're losing here. I'm going to quick find the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, so plus 10 differential in total turnovers. They only lost 5 fumbles and they gained 16 fumbles. So yeah, plus 11 in fumble differential was the biggest of them all. So I feel like this team's kind of interestingly, they lost a few guys to money too, and they did shed Zeke, and I agree with that. It was time for him to go. I didn't agree with his contract in the first place, but this could be the team that falls out. But the most interesting team to me is Washington. They're just interesting. would it shock you if they just kind of snuck out of nowhere? They got a fourth place schedule. You got Riverboat Ron, who has done this before to everybody with the Panthers, and he was a good defensive coordinator when he was with the Bears. And you kind of look at Washington's lineup, and I know you got Sam Howell there, but you also have to remember that the fourth place schedule and some of their skill positions looking pretty good. You got Jahan Dotson at wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. You got Brian Robinson at running back. He played for Bama. Antonio Gibson's still there. Pretty decent offensive line. And you still got Chase Young, who was injured, that should be healthy. Montez Sweat on the other side. You should have a pass rush there. This could be the sneaky team. Now, I'm not saying I'm betting it, but man, it wouldn't shock me if they kind of shocked the world. And Sam Howell, who was a massive prospect, actually turns out they are plus 1,100 to win that division.
Yeah, they remind me actually of Cleveland, to tell you the truth, to where there's star power on the team, but the team has a lot of holes behind it. And so there's a lot of different weaknesses. So if somehow those weaknesses can be shored up for however, whether it be schematically or players just play above, what the presumed skill level is, okay, I'll bite. I can see your argument, on that one, and I think the same could be made for Cleveland. Okay, if that's the case, but I'm not as excited about them as you are, or at least I'm not excited about the potential. Okay, and I think that's what you're really saying, that you're not picking them or anything like that, but the potential of them. And let's face it, now this I'll 100% agree with you. It's the NFL, so yeah. Literally anything can happen.
Yahtzee, baby. That's what it's like, right?
Yeah.
And that's what my friend Chris always says. What's interesting is that you said there's a new division winner every single year. We got the Giants at plus 800, and you got the Washington Commanders at plus 1,100. That only leaves the Cowboys if this trend continues. So you got these two massive. I know I'm probably tempting people to make bets that maybe they shouldn't. But the truth is, if you pick a team to win a division and there's someone at like a ridiculous price, that doesn't mean that you can't do both, because if you say Washington wins it 2 out of 10 times playing this season, and fast forward like all 17 games for 5 times in a row. Well, 2 out of 10 times is well worth plus 1,100 if that's what you believe. So it's like I will pick the Eagles, but I believe that this has value because that's what we do with percentages and being a sports bettor. So that's an interesting way to think about it. I think people need to think a little bit more like that when it comes to, betting in these situations.
Yeah. I can't think of the right term, but yes, where you're figuring out the money. Okay. And that's one of the things that I like to do. And I haven't seen it yet at Bovada, for example. They have, and we've talked about this in the past, where you can bet a team to finish, you can bet them to finish at any particular spot in their division. So 1st through 4th, and the odds then are an occurrence there, or in order, I should say. And so with that, and I would like to mess around with that one, because you can get some, if for example, you like the Dallas Cowboys and or even like with Washington, if you get them to move up to second place, you get some fairly short odds, not as much of a long shot. And if the schedule works out in a manner that you're thinking and how that works out, it becomes a pretty positive bet, or potentially.
You can hedge out of it too, because
right.
I believe that Washington's schedule started out pretty favorably, and that's very important. And like I said earlier on Warren Sharp's diagram, Washington, Chicago, and New York Jets all plus 12 in net rest edge at the top when it comes to that schedule. So I find that very, very interesting. Let's move on to the NFC West, Doug, and what a mess this division became, because last year we were looking at it as the best in the NFC, and the AFC West was supposed to be the best in the AFC, and kind of both weren't really true. The NFC West, the Super Bowl champion Rams just fell apart completely, and then the Arizona Cardinals completely fell apart, which helped Seattle kind of come back from nowhere, and the Niners were the Niners, winning games without a quarterback. So that's just how they roll, man. But that's just a great coach of Kyle Shanahan. I think that the Niners have the best coach right now, but I certainly don't like the long shots in this. I probably would pick the Niners again, but I haven't thought too much about this. This is the next one I'm going to kind of dive in this week too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is their this is their opportunity. And they do, though, have to have a quarterback that stays healthy. So whatever it ends up being, if it's Purdy, if it's Trey Lance, whoever ends up winning the job, they need him to play well and then also to stay healthy the entire season, because I'm of the opinion their window of opportunity is shrinking. Okay.
Mhm.
They've been around this for 4 years. Not that they're an old team, because they're not, but they've made some changes, but it just doesn't stay open forever. So I actually have them going to the Super Bowl this year out of the NFC. I think they're ready to go, but they have to have a quarterback that can play the entire season. And they showed what can happen, with Purdy. Not only was he a surprise, but he also played really well. So that was the big thing. So when this team has a quarterback that can play at that level with their running game, with their offense and their defense, boy, I don't know how you don't take them not only to win the division, but like I say, I got them going to the Super Bowl.
They're the number one coach, in my opinion, in all the NFL right now. I think Kyle Shanahan is the best coach right now. And you can say Belichick all time if you want. I'm just talking about I'm just talking about the last few years, and
right.
and you wonder if Sam Darnold's going to be the starter. Is Trey Lance really going to be any good? We don't know. Sam Darnold's got more experience, and Brock Purdy should be coming in halfway through the season. Is that going to be enough for him? Just so many questions. I will say that Brock Purdy did have the easiest part of the schedule when he was winning those games, and he had some very clear pockets. So that's interesting too. It's hard to bet on Geno Smith because I thought that was a fallacy as well. All of a sudden, the Rams come with Matthew Stafford and Aaron Donald, and they show like they're Super Bowl champs again. That would sure kick everybody in the what, Doug. But yeah, it's just too many questions for me in this division too. So I definitely wouldn't take the odds on them to win the Super Bowl. But if I had to pick a team in the NFC, I would pick them too to represent. I think that would be my team. So I think that's interesting. It's hate to say it, maybe the Eagles too. It's just we're just in that situation where the other two divisions just don't look up to par.
No, there's nothing. It doesn't appear there's anything in those other divisions. I 100% agree.
All right. Well, let's move on to another interesting division that I have as an above average, powerful division. Just nobody kind of completely at the top. I guess you could say the Bengals might be at the top here, but I do got to like what the other teams are doing here in the AFC North. Why don't you get started?
Yeah, well, now we might have a disagreement on this one then. So based on what you just said, I really like Cincinnati, and I have no problem as we sit here today to say they are my Super Bowl champion pick. I think this team is absolutely ready. Okay. To take the next step. They've been to 2 consecutive AFC championship games, went to the Super Bowl once. They signed Orlando Brown. That's going to change the whole dynamic of their offensive line, which was a true weakness when they went to the Super Bowl. It was less so last year, but it still wasn't very good.
They got hurt at the end too.
Right. You're right. They suffered some injuries there. Defensively, they only gave up 20 points per game, but I think this Zach Taylor, I get to like him more and more because, last year they basically the last 2 years, they throw the ball early and then they run the ball later. Now the passing game's still there, but then, they just develop the running game as it goes along. And so I just think he's a pretty smart guy. Okay. Along with what you're talking about here. And their defense, I think there's been a big effort to improve the pass rush because I'm sure it's not lost on him. And it certainly wasn't lost on me. I'm sure anybody else watching football, the number 1 and 2 teams last year in the NFL in sacks were Philadelphia and Kansas City. Well, where did those 2 teams end up? I'm not saying that's the only reason that they were there, but that's partly how you play defense in the NFL today is negative plays. Okay. It's great to shut teams down, but when you have to have the play that you get it, you stop the opposing team, either force them to punt or to kick field goals. I think that's a big benefit. I think that's part of what they're looking for. And then of course, they got Joe Cool at quarterback. Okay. Joe Burrow, the guy just personifies confidence. His teammates all feed off of it. So I like them to win their division. I love them to win the division, to be perfectly honest. And then I also like the fact that, this team, they're close. I think they take the next step.
Sounds like you're not buying into the Lamar Jackson hype right now. He just got paid. He's going to start showing up for
Well, he
OTAs.
got paid. Well, you know what? Kyler Murray got paid. Let's not forget that too.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure what that means. I almost kind of like, as from a sports better, as Doug knows, all the years he's been doing it. Usually a contract year is a buy-on situation, and it's not after they sign the contract. After they sign the contract, they're going out on the clubs and having a good time. They're feeling relaxed. They're buying a couple houses, maybe a couple cars. It's that situation. So I don't love that either. I think, and it's like they pick up Odell Beckham. Okay, well, Odell Beckham, how? Of course, the guy has been talented, but his mouth has kind of ruined it for me over the years on some of these teams. And it's almost like Odell Beckham needs to go to somewhere where it's just perfectly gelling like it was when he went to the Rams. He really didn't have no word to say because they're winning games with Cooper Kupp, But if they're losing games and he's not getting the ball, that's a lot worse. And they're in a very difficult division. I'm so torn on this division because you have a great draft from Pittsburgh, and we all know they always get above 8.5 wins or whatever it is. Tomlin is he's automatic when it comes to that. I love their draft. Some good guys from Wisconsin they got as well. You got to understand that the Ravens did improve their offense, but I don't know I think they might have took a hit on defense personally. Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, is it going to work this year? I'm not buying Cleveland, but there's a lot of people making arguments for Cleveland. It wouldn't shock me for them to just be like the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson, and wouldn't shock me if that situation. So to be honest with you, Doug, I do agree with you. I think the Bengals are still the team to beat. And to be honest with you, I don't have them quite picked for the Super Bowl, but that was my pre-thoughts. I want to get through all my divisions because I'm kind of looking at Jacksonville a little bit and a couple other teams. And we'll see if Kansas City can do a repeat. But no disagreement. I have them number one right now, I would say.
Yeah, the thing about Baltimore, everything's been off, the last several years, so whether it be if it's Jackson hurt, it's this guy's hurt, that guy's hurt. And so there's just been a lack of continuity on one side of the ball or the other. And I don't know. I just don't see Jackson playing 17 games. Okay, to be perfectly honest, I think that's part of the problem. So, if he does and he can play at a high level, do I think they can compete with Cincinnati? Sure, they can. Okay, and they can certainly beat him once if during the season. But I just don't have the faith in them. I think where Cincinnati is trending, how they've already proven themselves the last 2 years, I just think they're ready to go. So we'll find out. It's only May, so we got lots of time.
All right, fair enough. AFC South. Let's just pass on this one.
Well,
I mean,
if you want to do like a Kornheiser, pardon the interruption. If you want to set it for a minute, I'm good on that.
Why don't you do 30 seconds?
Okay, 30 seconds. Jacksonville's on the rise. I think they're going to improve somewhat. And I think Trevor Lawrence, if he continues to improve, I think make this team better. The rest of the division stinks. Okay, I think that's 22 seconds. Your turn.
Colts and Titans, worst drafts in the league. Why are you even pissing off Tannehill? Is he even going to hang out that long? Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a very important contender, I think, in this whole conference. So I love them. And then, man, who am I missing here?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it doesn't matter because the Houston Texans did draft CJ Stroud, but they're still miles away too. So Let's move on to the AFC East, then, my friend. A little bit more interesting here with the Jets, as you alluded to. Why don't you talk about that coming on in?
All right, Buffalo. I don't know what they need to do. But here's my opinion on Buffalo. I still think they're a good bet to go over 10.5. I think they're still the better choice. I'm seeing like plus 130 to win the division. I still think that's certainly not a bad bet. But to go beyond that, here's my opinion. Let me know if you agree. I don't think this team is tough enough. And when I say tough, I'm talking about physically and mentally. Is that they're really good. They have a lot of talent, but they just don't have, this is an older term, but the it factor, they're just lacking it. And so whether that's the coaching, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they just don't have it. And there's nothing you look at and you say, boy, they're right there. They could have beaten Kansas City 2 years ago, but when they got thrashed by Cincinnati, that just, to me, opened my eyes that I don't know. Now, maybe it changes this year. Maybe there'll be something different about them, but they just don't have the guys, to me, on that team that are what I would call tough guys. And that's why I like Burrow. Okay. And that's why I like Cincinnati more, because I think they're a tougher team. I also think that the coach sets a different tone, and that's my hesitation with them. Jets and the Miami, I think, could both press them. Like I said, I already mentioned about the Jets. I think the offense would be better. Everything else, I think the defense is going to be. I like Miami, and you know what? If I had to make a secondary bet in that division, I would take Miami. Okay, in this one. Tua has to play 15 games. Okay. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think the offense is potentially spectacular. From that standpoint, I think they've made some nice adjustments on defense. I think the defense will only improve. Season win total, I'm seeing 9.5. I think that's as good as gold. Okay. On them. Outside chance to win division, if not, finish in second place.
All right. Well, there you go. I definitely have some disagreement there because
Good.
You didn't even mention the Patriots. I think I
did.
Interesting. The Patriots are done. I did like Mac Jones, but I just think Belichick's past his prime. That whole Matt Patricia thing kind of probably soured a lot of things in this team. They don't really have a ton of star power on the Patriots that I see. I just kind of see them just grinding games out and just probably relying on their defense, and we'll see what happens. But Miami, my favorite win total is under 9.5, because I think Miami screwed up the most important thing that they had was they have the quarterback that couldn't even finish the season on his third concussion. He gets touched in his helmet, he could be done for the whole rest of the year, possibly his career. And I came into this offseason wondering if he was going to retire. And right, so how the heck do you not play him at the end after missing 3 or 4 games and just think that you can sit here rely on him? You pick up Mike White from the Jets, who's pretty much, very second rate. He is not a starter. You have Skylar Thompson there that, I mean, dude, seriously, Skylar Thompson, he shouldn't have been drafted, in my opinion. And then, so what's your backup plan? And I think that there's just so many ways that can hit because of the strength of this division. Hate to say it, but I think Aaron Rodgers is playing motivated. He's showing up now to OTAs. That's the first time in a while that he's doing this. But he's back with Hackett. The Jets, I thought, just had so much talent and just such bad quarterback play that was what they needed, and that's what they fixed. I think the Jets win this division. Buffalo, I hate the Trayvon Edmonds loss and the fact that they went tight end instead. Now they probably should work in their tight ends. But I don't know if Josh Allen is that kind of player. He just kind of takes off, and they're kind of becoming figured out a little bit, in my opinion, here. Now, the Jets have the most favorable schedule going from that graphic that I talked about, plus 12 with the Bears and Washington. As far as, obviously, rest factor, they have just a lot of favorable situations. I like the Jets to win this division, and I think Buffalo takes a step back.
That's not a surprise in a lot of cases. I just happen to like Miami a little bit more, but hey, you know what? Disagreements are good. Okay. I mean, it's better. It's actually, to me, it's more interesting watching than too. When 2 guys are talking about it, they don't exactly agree with it. And hey, then they can see who ends up being right. Okay.
It's a great exercise because
that is never going to be an issue.
Of course, it's a great exercise. We're trying to learn from each other too. It's not like we can't change our opinion. So excellent breakdown on that. AFC West is the final one we have. Obviously, we have the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs there. Probably the most disappointing team in the Chargers sitting there, if you especially go back to that playoff loss and pretty much everything else they did. And then obviously you have Denver that couldn't score a point with Russell Wilson, which was another massive failure. that was my biggest win total play, them and the Bears under last year, Denver. And then obviously the Raiders that kicked their quarterback to the curb, which was a little bit of a head scratcher to me. But why don't you go ahead and you go first?
Yeah, well, now I know you tend to look at this differently. I tend to look at it as if I have an opportunity to win. Okay, now I believe Kansas City's like minus 160 or minus 180 to win the division, and that's I actually have already bet that. When I looked this up the other day, I already bet it because I think they're an absolute lock to win this division. The last time they didn't win the division, okay, well, you know what? Are you a Star Wars guy at all?
I certainly was. Now
Okay,
that the fact that they're going absolutely nuts with just releasing all these spin-offs and movies,
right.
I
Okay.
kind of
Well,
shied on it, but
well,
yeah.
so you might remember this. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That was 2015, and that was the last time a team other than the Kansas City Chiefs won that division. Okay, it was the Denver Broncos, by the way. Uh, this team last year won the Super Bowl. They transitioned, I would say, almost perfectly from a semi-veteran team to one of the youngest teams in NFL last year. And so I think it's just brilliant what they've done. Andy Reid is such a different coach than he was at Philadelphia, because at Philadelphia he was known for losing the biggest games. Now he wins the biggest games, okay, on a continual basis. I think he's a smarter coach. I think he's a freer coach, okay. And I think that's happened to him with age, is that he just, he doesn't worry about anything anymore. And so this team, they got Patrick Mahomes. Literally, unless Mahomes is hurt or their other 21 starters are hurt, I don't see how they don't win this division. And they are not hurt one bit, okay, by the fact that San Diego, the Chargers, I don't think has a smart coach. I think he's a good coach, but I don't like his in-game decisions. Raiders continue to be a mess. Denver, not sure where they are exactly. So all of that also plays into the my thought process of thinking Kansas City wins this division. I'm not saying they're going to win it by 4 games. I'm just saying when we get to January, the second Sunday in January, they're the division champs if they aren't already sooner.
How about combining the brain powers of Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore together on the team, right? Kellen Moore from the Cowboys coming on. Brandon, what can go wrong, right, for the Chargers this year?
I don't even. I mean, I like the Chargers offense. There's plenty to like there. I just don't like the unnecessary risk taking, and to me, it's unnecessary.
Well, they have the talent. It's just you have some bad coaches there, and I bet them plus 275, and the Chiefs at plus 175 to win the division last year. I was like, this is a no brainer. I'm playing against the Raiders and Denver with Russell Wilson and Hackett as good. That was one of the easier bets I made because I could have won either way. If the Chargers would have won it, the Chiefs won it, but it still paid plus 75. For me. So, or obviously you have to take away the unit, so it paid almost the full. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not going against the Chiefs in this division. I do like the upgraded coach for Denver, Sean Payton, but they also brought Joe Lombardi over from the Saints. So you want for their offense coordinator, but is that going to be enough to fix Russell Wilson? I don't know. Probably not. Wilson just needs to figure out he's not a pocket passer, and he's got to do some more stuff with his legs. He was a smart runner with his legs too. He'd get down and wouldn't get injured. That just stopped somehow. And it was during Seattle. I thought he was just a much more threat when he was doing that. But at plus 550, it's not nearly enough for me to get cute and try to fade the Chiefs here. I think the Chiefs are proper favorites here. 165 is up there a little bit, but maybe it should be minus 200 if you think about how good these Chiefs really are. So you have no disagreement. And what's up with the Raiders here? Because the whole idea of bringing Devontae Adams was to get him with his old college quarterback and Derek Carr. 1 year later, they kick Carr to the curb. I mean, what's Devontae Adams thinking here? It's like the whole reason we did this is, we have one hiccup year and all of a sudden he's gone. I mean, it just kind of tells you that, well, Adams, we don't care about what you think. We're going to try Jimmy Garoppolo, who's only played for amazing teams his whole career. Yeah, the Raiders don't make a lot of sense to me on some of their decisions, Doug.
No, there's a reason. I mean, when you think of Al Davis, and you think of Mark Davis, and you think of the Al Davis in his later years. Okay. I mean, pretty much we just got a continuation of the same thing. So there's seemingly no direction. And if there's a chosen direction, it's the wrong one. And I'm sure you have seen this as well. Devontae Adams has been very honest in his assessment of his team. And so there is speculation that he is talking with the idea that possibly he could get traded even before the season starts. And And so with that, yes, there'd be a bit of a cap hit, but at least he could go somewhere else, and the Raiders can move on. And if Garoppolo plays 11 games, or I guess here's my question to you: what's the over under on Garoppolo for games played this year?
If I was setting it, it would probably be. You have to assume no injury. You have to assume he's going to play, and you have to look at what they have after him. There's not a lot after him, right? Who's their backup? Right. And that's the problem, so you'd have to set it high at 12.5. I don't think I'd take the under, but I just don't know how long he's really going to last there myself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, I'll give him one thing. He looks good, with that hair, just a touch of gray now with the silver and black. I mean, he's got the right look, to be
Silver Fox.
But, but beyond that, no, not much there to get excited about. And, because let's also not forget the last time the Raiders won a division, 2002.
Well, Tom Brady just bought piece of the team, so he's going to play next year, right?
Now, does Tom Brady then does he still go to that deal with the Giant, or with the at the beginning of the year to be honored with the Patriots? Now he's an owner of another team.
I think that's a conflict of interest right there. But I think
I'm just asking. That's all.
Write him up for it. Write him up. No, I think pretty sure. Brian Hoyer, the Destroyer, is the second string here. And Aiden O'Connell is the guy they drafted from Purdue, who is in the most collegey of all collegey offenses in the world. I'm pretty sure their run game ranked below the worst FCS team at Purdue. It's just that bad, man. But Chase Garbers is fourth. So yeah, there's really no hope after Garoppolo. I mean,
yeah, I was going to say, you didn't even have to mention one of those guys because it doesn't make any difference. If Garoppolo goes down, the ship goes with it, and even it's not really a good ship to begin with.
Absolutely. So let's recap a couple of our bets here. I'm taking the Jets at plus 250 to win that division. I think it's a good bet in this situation. I really like the fact that they did get Aaron Rodgers. I've never been a big Aaron Rodgers fan, especially as a Bears fan. But to be honest with you, I have to just look at his motivation here and the fact that he's going with a system that he's played in before with Hackett. So I like that. And I like Miami's win total at under 9.5. I think I might have mentioned one or two that was on, but I might have given up on other shows. And so you had the Chiefs, and what else?
I like the Chiefs. I still like Philadelphia to win their division from that standpoint. I do like Buffalo over on the win total. I also like Miami on the win total. And then, as I also mentioned, I like San Francisco to win the NFC, and I've got Cincinnati to win the AFC and the Super Bowl. So that's my full regalia right there.
There you go. You can have it all from Doug Upstone. And where could our listeners find your great information and plays?
Well, as the poster behind me clearly shows, that is Doc Sports, and that's where my home is these days. And so, yeah, available right there. The full regalia of different types of sports betting stuff. Doing baseball, of course. When football comes around, I'll have all that. This time of year now, I'm doing the WNBA as opposed to Kiev. I did the XFL and I did the USFL as going on right now. And then, still with the NBA, okay, we still got a little bit of time. Not a lot of games, but got a little bit left. And NHL, been on a super run in the NHL, especially on big plays. So, yeah, ready to go. So with Doug Upstone at Doc Sports, and Doug Upstone just like it sounds. Okay,
make sure you guys
right there. It's real easy to find. And lots of, by the way, and also lots of like you have lots of YouTube videos. I get free plays every single day on YouTube at Docs. And then also I write an article specifically. It's called The Pulse, the Betting Pulse. It's at another location, but I always post them. I do it 3 days a week. It's on Twitter. Has just tons of information, a lot of betting stuff, a lot of fun stuff at the same time too. So look for that at Kev mentioned, big top of the show, at Doug Upstone on Twitter.
All right. Make sure you guys check out Doug. Doug, had a blast. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, as always, my friend. And we got to go catch a game here real quick and kick back a couple of cold ones.
I'm always ready for that, my friend. Enjoy Memorial Weekend.